It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by Audible.com. Go to audibletrial.com/Opperman Report. You can sign up for free and get yourself a free audiobook. Now, just a couple of days ago, we did a pretty groundbreaking interview with Dr. Dale Griffis, who was a 23-year police veteran, retired a captain, consulted with the FBI on cases all over the country, and then he went to work. He was part of a congressional hearing where he gave a press conference at the National Press Club right after a congressional hearing in Congress. So, Dr. Griffis, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am. I did a study of over 500, close to 500 people who had been in cults. And I had some people help me get names of these people, and I wrote them. I even talked with them. And then what was brought out in the trial by the defense was my one section on the legality of behavior modification and so forth, and religion, and that was proctored by agents of the FBI in Washington, D.C. I asked for approval because to have them review what I did so that I was legally correct and from the law enforcement standpoint. And in that court case, I was granted the ability to speak as expert after the judge asked me how many cases I worked in occult crimes, and I said around 1,200.
But back to your credentials and your education. You also taught a college-level course in criminal justice.
I taught at Terra Technical College. I guest lectured at probably about 20 different colleges, and I ended up speaking and teaching at The Ohio State University in criminal justice.
And you wrote a book?
My dissertation is 285 pages, something like that. That's one. And then I co-authored a book with Ted Swartz called Secret Weapons on behavior modification and so forth.
And you worked as an investigator for the DA's office?
I worked 3 years at the prosecutor's office part-time. I had some kids getting ready to go to college and had to help out with some college funds, so I worked there as a Secret Service officer on the part-time, and my job basically was putting together cases for trial and preparing witnesses to speak. I started in this whole study in 1967 studying cults, and the first occult case was in 1976. And besides being a policeman, and I got to correct you, it was not 23 years, it was 26 years as a policeman. I started it after a kid committed suicide offering his body up to Satan, and nobody in this whole area of Ohio had any idea what the heck was going on. And while I might have been a policeman, I was also a dad. Mm. And I don't like unturned stones. They can come to bite you. And I just wanted to find out what it was. I worked a week with the San Francisco Police Department. I worked a week with the LA Police Department, just so that I knew what was going on in California and so forth. These things you don't hear about in Paradise Lost. They had a job to do. They tried awful darn hard to do it. And what was interesting, all I testified about, in a crime, Ed, there are three things: opportunity, ability, and desire. I only testified to the desire part. And the other two, I don't think you heard anything about at all, did you?
Well, a little bit, and people that have investigated the case have heard a little bit. Like, for instance, that the three men who pled guilty and confessed and implicated themselves at various times, failed polygraph tests. They don't have an alibi for where they were that night. Yeah, so opportunity.
And I think there's been some signed confessions.
Oh yeah, several.
Yeah, and the thing about it, the guy that testified he was asked a true-false question, and this professor from Berkeley took him a couple hours to answer a true-false question. I don't know how the heck you do that.
What was that? The false confession expert?
BS the troops.
Was that the false confession expert you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
And my comment, when I testified as an expert, finally got through, it only lasted 20 minutes. I don't think you saw any of that on Paradise Lost.
There's a bit of it. There's a bit of it. Enough that, the first documentary really wasn't that bad. Many people come away agreeing that the three men that confessed and pled guilty are guilty. There's just like a little question left out. But I think it's more like once the success of that film and people came out and started these support groups and defense awareness funds, where the money, where thousands and thousands and thousands were being raised each week. And where that money was going, nobody really knows. We uncovered some very interesting things about some of the originating founders of these defense groups that we've discussed before in my series of shows on this topic. But not, it really was 50-50, came away from that first broadcast. But now, let me ask you a question. How did you become involved in West Memphis? Like, weren't they having animal mutilations and evidence of sacrifices before you ever testified, and they called you in?
About 18 months prior to that, I had given a talk in Little Rock, Arkansas, and some of the officers from that area of Arkansas were present. And approximately a year in advance of that, then, one of those officers sent me information about the cult of the dead cow and the fact that they were having animal mutilations and that they were having some stuff, and that Eccles' name came up at that time.
Really?
I had sent them a list of things for them to do in the school to do and so forth like that. One of the things I recommended is that they talk with the English teacher and the music teacher to see what lyrics are being written and what's being written in the papers people have to produce. Plus, take a look at the art department and see if there's what's showing up in the art department, so that you can help steer these kids around so that there's no problems. I don't enjoy putting people in prison. If you can help them, that's fine. I'm glad to do that.
Yeah, especially if we can avoid 3 murders, 3 little
Sure.
8-year-old Boy Scouts. So before these murders ever took place, you were there on the scene because of these animal sacrifices.
I was not on the scene. I was
at a conference.
I was contacted, and I had information sent to me to review.
Gotcha. Now, during the crime and the investigation, we found out that one of the main characters, Damien Eccles, had animal skulls in his bedroom. He had them hanging from a clothesline in his backyard to treat them, whatever he was doing with them, to bleach them. His family was aware of this. His mother was aware. His father was aware. So we know that. That's in police reports. That's documented. But now, do we know after this trial, did this activity, and Eccles is in prison, and these characters are in prison, do we know if that kind of activity continued in that town?
Ceased immediately.
So it all stopped.